Always like the Erik chuckle in there in the background.
I can't help
Here
myself.
we
I don't
are.
know.
Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Episode, who knows what? What number are we up to? Is like
I knew you were going to ask that question. 16.
16,
Let's say
17.
16. I got it right. 16.
Episode 16. And
Sweet
here we
16.
are. There's Matt Allard hanging out morning times in Tokyo. He's coming to us from the future. Eriknaso coming to us from San Diego. You were out last week, I think, Erik, because something big was happening. We were getting a new president of the United States of America.
Yeah, kind of got pulled in, and they needed some extra help, and doesn't happen very often, but it happened. I guess it takes something like inauguration or something, insurrection. I don't know. What do you know?
There it is. And then
Was Erik in DC helping with moving trucks?
he was. He was part of security.
We have these huge budgets here at NBC7. I get on a plane and pull cable.
That's it. Wait, I thought you were with an NBC affiliate.
Well, we are owned and operated, so we are one of those Comcast. We're an affiliate, but we're owned and operated by NBC. Yeah,
I got it. Okay, cool. And then the other person here who's in the frame, who's just hanging out, looking down, and taking it all in. There he is, Mr. Watson Wu. I have broken bread with this gentleman in the past. Amazing person. Like him very much, and thank you very much for being here, Watson.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
Honored to have you, and we have a lot to talk about, and you come to us in sort of a very unique area when it comes to sound, because a lot of the people that we deal with day in and day out are what I would consider traditional sound recordists, traditional sound mixers, people who come into, narrative projects, they come into documentary projects, and the job is to come in with a crew, a camera operator, and and a small crew of people, and to record primarily dialogue. And what you do is very different. So I think what we're going to do is just jump into this. We've got video, we've got audio files, we got some behind-the-scenes stills of what you do. Erik, it's you. Let's start this thing up with Watson. All right.
All right. Well, first off, Watson, thanks for being here. This is awesome. This is a totally different, you're a totally different kind of guest because we haven't had an audio person here yet. So I'm really excited to, share your knowledge, pick your brain. And I'm sure people are going to be really interested in what you do. And so maybe you can just sort of start us off. Tell us a little about how you got started and sort of what you do. What is your job? Because it's a little different. You're not just out there recording audio with news crews and film. You're kind of in a little, I guess, a niche type of audio capture.
Yes. Very different. Like you said, I started off in majoring in music for college. I was offered a scholarship, so I continued my study in music education and found out that I was good at writing music through music theory classes. Gave me an assignment and I could write the music. And after college, I was writing music for a game, and the client asked me, "Can you also do sound effects? We need sound effects for the game." I said, "Well, let me give it a shot. I haven't done that, but I've done quite a bit of recordings." So I did recordings. I used libraries, and through the recordings and editing, designing, I found out I really liked it, and apparently the client too. So that's how I got started. I was attending conferences of video game conferences, expos, and meeting the right people, and going from contract work to contract work. And later on, I got into working on film, ads, writing music as well. But sound effects is my passion. That's what I do today.
Oh,
No, I'm doing that on purpose because I just wanted to re-emphasize how important sound actually is.
that's amazing.
Bad boy.
Sneaky,
That's good.
sneaky.
Good.
So Watson, as I just emphasized then, everything that we watch visually, sound plays a huge role in everything that we see. It sort of relates back. When there's no sound, if you watch a scary movie, whatever, for instance, and you turn the sound off, it no longer becomes sort of scary. How important is sound to matching video in terms of creating an overall experience?
When you have really bad sound, the emotion's just not there. You may have the visual, like you said, a horror movie, these scary visuals, the gore, but when you don't have those gory sounds, these scary sounds, subtle to loud, it's just not there. I remember a few months ago I was watching a TV show, and the visuals were stunning, but at the climax of the fight scene, you're expecting, when you see the swords hitting swords, you're expecting a loud blade sounds, and it just wasn't there. So I guess the sound designer or sound department dropped the ball, and I was really disappointed. So without that, those great sounds, the aggressive sounds, the rise and fall of dynamics, it's just wasn't there. I didn't watch it, didn't want to watch it anymore. So it's very, very important to get great aggressive sounds when needed.
So one of the things I want to bring up is that you create a lot of sound effects in a lot of different categories. One of them is for video games. Why don't we just roll something on something you did, Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. We'll listen for 15, 20 seconds, and if you don't mind at that point starting to explain to us over that footage and what we're hearing, kind of your approach to doing that project. Is that cool, Watson?
Sounds good.
Let's do it. Here we go.
Okay. So for Vietnam game, I was tasked to find the correct era of the weapons used during the 60s, um, and get it in a place where, like, as you see, there's grassland, there's rice field. So we did the recordings here in Florida, and that way we were exactly the same, like the Vietnam era, the location. So I had to really organize to get all these authentic weapons, full automatic weapons, correct to the Vietnam War era, the 1960s. So we had to organize multiple parties together to really make it happen on the 2-day recording session. And the location had to be done correctly, that we're not getting interruptions from different people. There was a shooting range I rented before, and this right here, this belt-fed machine gun, it's an M60, so not many people, even here in America, have a belt-fed M60 machine gun. So I had to rent all that and get the right people, and rent a place and get microphones all over the place to capture close, medium, and far perspectives of these weapon sounds.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Two questions on that one. It's first, you mentioned getting access to these type of guns. I mean, that's got to be somewhat difficult. Or maybe, I mean, in Vegas you can rent a tank. So I don't know what it's like in Florida. But also talk about, you mentioned having multiple microphones. What kind of microphones do you use to shoot something so loud? I mean, I know, when I've done some news stories on guns, it's really difficult because it's very loud. And so you talk about mic placement and the types of mics that you use.
Sure. I use a lot of different brands. I myself own over 50 microphones. I have everything from DPA, Sennheiser, Shure, Rode, Neumann, just all kinds. And through my different jobs and tests I've done, I know what could be close and what could not be close. For example, you should never put a Neumann for close and medium perspectives. Medium distance is, to me, maybe 30 to 60 feet away from the shooter. So never put a Neumann if you're going to attempt this, and be aware. You don't want to break a Neumann microphone because you will cry. I would cry. So I always use things that if they break, I'm not gonna cry over it. I might shed a little tear, but not so much. But I found a lot of microphones could handle the high pressure, the loud sounds from firearms. So Rode can do that, can handle high SPL. When you look at the manual of a microphone, it may say 130 decibels when the gunshot could be 140 or more decibels. Well, it's not true. A lot of these microphones, they're measured based on music, based on
Mm.
a sine wave, for example, playing loud. So that it's not a true a measurement when you look at the manual for sound effects, like gunshots and race cars. So a lot of these gunshots are bam, they're quick and gone. So if they're sustained loud, yes, it could damage the microphones and including us. So it's a quick pop and gone. So I found out that a lot of these Rode, Sennheiser DPAs, they could really handle the high pressures.
Do you find that it's important for, say something like that with firearms, that you actually get a chance to use that particular firearm, so you're sort of familiar with how it works in terms of where you're going to be placing the mics or what sort of sounds it's going to make? Do you get hands on with it to do that, or do you just literally turn up and then someone else is firing it and you're recording it?
I do. I do. I often will test on my own or with friends or with these professionals, and I got invited to go shoot with some of these people, and so I get to freely move mics around safely behind the shooters and say, hey, what does this sound like to the right of the shooter versus the left, or behind the shooter, or below or above? So from the vast amount of experiments, I've learned to learn what this mic can do here versus what that mic can do. So it is a lot of think of rehearsals. You're rehearsing for the final performance. So that's what I do. I think of rehearsals. So you do have to experiment, practice. If a conductor wants to be a good conductor, you better practice conducting
Mm.
it for that final performance.
And do you like to use more than, say, like one specific microphone when you're capturing audio, like, as far as not maybe a specific mic, but maybe have them offset and capturing like 3 or 4 different sound angles at the same time to capture different types of ambience?
Yes, yes. For example, that game, Rising Storm 2, Vietnam, I've had, I think, about 3 channels per distance. So you had 3 to 4 for close. Close is literally a few inches away, and we had a mic on the weapon. We had a
Mm.
DPA on the weapon that can handle that kind of pressure. And I think that's the only mic, the 4062, that can handle a loud pressure and concussion from a firearm. So yeah, if I have, let's say, a cardio mic that only captures this small proximity, I might have another mic that's XY stereo to capture what that same perspective sounds from a wider perspective. So I'd like to do that per perspective to make it interesting. So if um, if a screenshot of sorry, a cinema look of the game, it's got a lot of graphics. They may want a bigger sound versus a solo playing moment. You want a tighter sound. So they have all those options during editing, during implementation. So
And so
more
for
is better.
yeah. So for you, Watson, when you're doing that and you're at those different distances using different mics and you're capturing that, when that's all captured, are you just handing off each one of those channels and recordings to the client, or are you generally then creating a mix at those different distances and handing off something that they would then incorporate into their video game or into their final picture?
Depends on the customer. Some customers of a game company, they might have a set of sound designers, but they have more time to edit and design and implement into the game. And some studios are very small, maybe one or two sound guys, and then they will hire me to also edit and design for the game. So it depends on the customer. But a lot of these customers I deal with, they do have a whole team, and so I a lot of times will record and give them the raw recordings, and they're like poly wave files. So one wave file might have 8 different channels, and then I'll label them correctly on a spreadsheet what they are.
Cool. Let's go ahead and play back something else here. We have NASCAR Heat, and so we
Okay.
can keep moving through some projects that you worked on. And it seems like a lot of your specialty is vehicles and weapons, things that go from very quiet to very loud. I'd love to get your perspective when we come back after seeing this.
Mhm.
For somebody who might want to start getting into sound effects recordings, maybe some
Mhm.
recommendations of one or two mics they can start to play with and why they might do that in the cost effective realm, because I know that some of your mics cost a lot of money. So let's go ahead and play that,
Mhm.
and we can talk about that.
Sure. So with NASCAR Heat, we had access to a real NASCAR. So if you're watching a NASCAR race on TV, one of those cars was the one we recorded. So it was a if you look at a Ford Mustang, for example. So I was tasked to put 12 channels of microphones on a inside and outside the vehicle to capture the engine, the sound of what the driver hears, as well as the exhaust. So they wanted each of those perspectives, just like the firearms, to be isolated. So if the sound designer, audio director was editing, if you wanted the more prominent exhaust sounds, well, he's going to get isolated exhaust without the engine sounds in that channel. So and vice versa. So if you're playing the game in first person point of view, you're going to hear what the driver hears, which is the mix of both engine and exhaust from those mics that were above him. And so that's what you call onboard sounds. So if you're in the vehicle, you're hearing engine, cab, and exhaust. And also at the same time, I hired Aaron Marks to be at the grandstand, and we had 3 sets of stereo mics from the fans' point of view, and they were about 300 feet apart from each other to get that room pass by sounds. So when you play the game or watch the gameplay, the external perspective, that's what you're hearing versus on board.
For the in-car recordings, what are you doing in terms of what are you using to actually record to? Because obviously, I guess you're probably not on board the NASCAR when it's going around. What are you leaving inside the car to actually record to? And then how do you know sort of, what level to set it at in terms of the audio that you're going to be capturing?
Sure, sure. I had a Sound Devices 788T SST, so it's an 8 input recorder, and I had it in a small K-Tech Stingray bag. It's a junior bag, and I had to zip tie it to the inside door of where the passenger, if there's a passenger seat, and because you could not put anything on the ground right there, because that's where the exhaust is, and it gets really hot. So all the mics that were in all the places from the engine, the cab, and the exhaust were routed to the passenger window, and I had to zip tie them again away from the ground, and they're all feeding into the recorder. And between the recorder and the mics, I had mic pads. So mic pads it's got a selector switch that lets you cut off 10 decibels, 11 or 15 decibels, 25 decibels. So I had to use 25 decibels because the car was that loud. And every time the driver came back to the garage, they would open that door for me, and I would go in and hit stop quickly swap memory cards and take the memory card and copy it to my laptop and do the listening. So as I was listening through my laptop, I would say, okay, I need to adjust channel 5 and channel 8. So I would walk back to the car and adjust those levels, hit record, and then would they close the window, bolt it shut, and the car would take off. So we kept doing that again and again through the entire day until I was satisfied with what we've captured. So it's great to see the WAV files in my digital audio workstation and see what I need to adjust. So that was wonderful to work with the team that were quick, very efficient, just like a pit crew, and for sound.
I'm curious about your thoughts on 32-bit float. I know it's becoming much more popular. It's being implemented in a lot more newer recorders, even from those little tiny ones from like Tentacle Sync and Zoom. What's your thoughts about 32-bit float?
I like it. I like it for a lot of loud sounds. When there's sudden rise of something really loud, a scream, an impact. So I do like it a lot. I use a lot of these Zoom F6. I have 2 of them. That's how much I like them, and they're really inexpensive. So I like it for certain moments. I've tried it for gunshots, and I did not like what I heard because to me, the theory behind 32-bit, I just had a feeling that it was going to behave like we do. If you and I hear a gunshot out of nowhere, we duck and we get a little scared. So when I tried the gunshot with the Zoom F6, the sound just artificial intelligence, it just ducked. It didn't give me the aggressive wanted distortions that I want in a recording. So that's why I use sound devices, the 442 mixers, the older 744 recorder. Those 24-bit recorders, mixers, have the analog limiters that are better for those kinds of sounds. Now for cars, the F6 is wonderful. It does a great job and it's small. It gives you 6 inputs right away. I really like that recorder.
So great. So going back to that question from earlier and kind of piggybacking on Erik's question, sort of, when somebody is starting to think about recording some of the things that you do, and what types of microphones do you think are good starter microphones for people without breaking the bank? I mean, are there some that are favorites that you would say these are some good things to think about if you're recording weapons, and these are things that would be great if you're recording vehicles and things like that?
Sure. I think for starting out, the Rode NTG5 short, lightweight shotgun mic, I'm actually blown away by the quality, and I still can't believe it's a $500 mic. To me, it sounds like a $1,500, $2,000 mic. And some of my high end clients, when they hire me, they say, "Hey, can you make sure you include that NTG5 in the array of mics?" I said, "Sure." So they heard the sounds, the raw sounds, and they can't believe it. So I think that's a good mic because it isolates well what you're pointing at. So if you're recording footsteps, you point at the surface, that's what you're gonna get, apart from unwanted sounds. So that's a good mic. You could do a stereo mic, inexpensive one. You could do um, Shure, Rode. They have the sub $1,000 stereo mics, and those are good to get that different perspective. So yeah, I think those are good. And then Zoom is a good way. You plug it in and record, and a lot of times you can get pretty decent sounds. If you're in the right location, you could get clean sounds of what you're pointing at, and be happy with it. So you don't always have to have the really expensive stuff because I use, microphones that are $99 up to microphones that are $9,500, everything in between. So it depends on the job.
Right tool for the job.
Exactly.
So should we let's one of the things that you sent to me were these BMW K1200 sounds. If you don't
Mhm.
mind, I'd love to play a two-parter here. The first one really just breaks down some of the sounds, and there's some information that comes up on the screen, and then you sent me another thing which is a behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So let's check out the sounds part of it first, and then maybe we can go to the BTS and you can walk us through that. Is that cool?
Sure. Sure.
Let's do
Sounds
it.
good.
Okay, here we go.
So playing through here, you're gonna hear right quite a bit of compression sound. So I recommend after this, you go into my YouTube channel and you could listen to these demos. That way you're not gonna get that double compression. Um, so for a motorcycle, I like to, let's say the from the rider's perspective, you're gonna see the exhaust on the rear side of the motorcycle. So for the engine, I like to put the mic on the front left side, away from that area to get that separation. So when you hear the isolated engine, it's going to be engine without the exhaust. And same thing. So I put the mic for the rear right, and that way when you hear the exhaust, you're not hearing the engine. So that's what I do with how I do mic placements for a motorcycle, for example, and to get that great isolated sounds. That way, you're done. You could take those and mix it how you want. You want more exhaust, more beefy sound, or you want more the high pitch of 10,000 RPMs from an engine. So,
Mm. How do you
Cool.
mount on a motorcycle? Because I would imagine the vibration and wind noise,
mhm.
those got to be challenging. How do you get through that?
It's challenging. It's about finding the right area that you can hide, conceal microphones. I have quite a bit of Ryko windjammer furs, and sometimes I'll double and triple hide the lavalier mic, the handheld vocal mic, and zip tie them in certain areas. So if you look at a bike, there are a lot of thin metal areas, and you have to conceal the mics so that it's of course the mic is facing rear, so you're going forward. So I have to find the right places and zip tie them, and sometimes I have to use memory foam right at the frame and put the mic next to it. That way, if the bike like a Harley that vibrates all the time, you're gonna get more sounds than the vibration of unwanted vibration sounds. So it's about really just like the firearms, you gotta put it in certain places, and when the bike comes back, you hit stop and do a playback and see what it sounds like. So a lot of trial and error.
So could you I'm going to play this BTS of the BMW K1200. Could you just turn up your mic just a little bit?
Sure.
Because it'll
Sure.
be great for the VO part. And I just want to
Okay.
reiterate what you said, Watson, on the last clip, which is we've kind of got double compression going here. So definitely go to Watson's website, which is linked in the description, and to his YouTube channel, where you
Mhm.
can hear these a little bit better in terms of quality when we're not doing the live stream. So I'm going to
Mhm.
play this BTS one, Did you say to me that in the beginning we're listening to a GoPro right at the beginning of this? Is that correct in terms of the
Yes, yes.
microphone? Okay.
So in the beginning, you'll see the mishap of the attached GoPro on this moving motorcycle, and all the audio in the beginning is just from that GoPro. But afterwards, when you see the GoPro facing the rider, that's all from the library, the finished, ready to use sounds. So that
Okay,
you
great.
hear differences between quality.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and play that.
Okay.
And you can speak over it and tell us what's going on here.
So this GoPro has survived many crashes, and it still works. You see, I'm a fast runner. You can see I'm holding one mic for the following, tracking the vehicle entire time. And there's another microphone on the ground to capture the pan of left to right, right to left. So I have both stereo mics going into the same recorder. So the externals, you're going to hear, you see 4 channels. So top two for following, bottom 2 for pan. And on this bike, I had 2 microphones. So as we're facing the rider, you're hearing exhaust sounds by itself. And then later on, the engine sound by itself. So this is at my top secret road. I had a client a long time ago said, "I'm going to call that your top secret road because it's a great place. It's in the
Yeah, I
middle
was
of
going to ask you
nowhere.
about that.
Yeah, it's great because you can allegedly go certain speeds and be okay. You could see how wide it is left and right. So if you're seeing if there's an animal coming by, you know when to stop to avoid. So you can see a shadow. That's a GoPro, and you see that the thin lavalier cable on the bike with the gaffer tape. And so yeah, with the proper gaffer tape, you could re-secure the microphones and cables safely on a moving motorcycle. You know, I've done vehicles that were going over 200 miles per hour, and the gaffer tape held on, no problem. Great. So these are cloth-based gaffer tape. Pro Tapes is a good brand. So
Eh,
right here, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you. So this track is not too far away from where you are. You don't have to travel hours to record this stuff.
I moved further away, so I am now 30 minutes only from this top secret road. I used to be 10 minutes, but I'm only half an hour, which is wonderful place. So that was a little blooper there. Always turn your headphones down when you record horn sounds. Trust me, I've learned the hard way. That was like a gunshot, but high pitch. So, and also, if you're gonna do Foley sounds, always do them first because when the vehicle gets really hot, you're gonna hear that pinging sound from the heat of the metal. So if you want right away, do that first. Get it out of the
Mm.
way. Make sure you include horn and whatever else buttons that sounds, and then move on to the harder stuff. Always do stunts at the end because if something happens, it's over. So always do easy first and then hard at the end.
I'm
So
assuming that a lot of your work comes down to experience and trial and error because it's not just people probably envisage, oh well, I can just go out with a microphone and capture sounds, but it's a lot more tricky than that. And I guess from all your years of experience, you know where's the best place to place a microphone on a bike or a car or when you're doing gunshots. So how much of that experience benefits you in the type of work that you do, and does it make it your job quicker and easier now for yourself personally because you do have that experience and knowledge of where to place a microphone and what to do in a certain situation?
Yes, yes. The experience really counts. You know, if you're going to organize a huge event, you know what could go wrong, and so you're going to plan for that. So um, the I guess it's kind of OCD. Sometimes when I hear a vehicle go by, and I'll go, "Hey, That's great. I know where to put the microphone to get great exhaust sounds. So I really do believe I annoy my family over that. I will say, "Did you hear that? Did you hear this?" And I'm looking when I look at the car, I always look at where the exhaust is at. And some of my friends who are muscle car guys, they always have a joke, say, "Hey, we love the speed of this car." And then Watson comes on, "Hey, how does it sound?" I'm always interfering with their good time of high speed and performance with sound. So it's a huge factor because sometimes I'll just hear the car coming in for to location. Never heard a car. I'll hear how it comes in, and I'll know exactly pretty close to where I'm going to put the microphones and capture the best sounds possible.
What's been the most challenging shoot you've ever had, and what has been the most epic fail
Mm.
ever? Did you
Oh,
ever have microphones flying off of cars and looking at it?
I think we need to shut this session down and let me go away. I don't want to remember bad sessions. It was horrible. I guess I'm a perfectionist. Um, I would say motorcycles are some of the hardest things to do. Um, it's not like a car. A car has a whole body to sort of block the wind from hitting the mic. So I had to do a lot of practice to really get down how to really capture good motorcycle sounds. That and the watercraft. For one game, it's called Atlas, and I was tasked to record a sailing ship. So I rented a 1812 replica sailing ship, and it took a crew of 9 people to run this sailing ship. And I brought tons of microphones and backup microphones and recorders to capture what a sailing ship sounded like back in the 1800s. So that was one of the most challenging, and I really enjoyed it. I love the feeling of being out in the wind, the sunshine, and the rustling of the mast from the ship. And I put a mic really high up on the mast, and the guy who worked there, he was like a monkey. He was able to climb up there easily and put a mic up there for me. I'm like, here's a bag of zip ties. He goes, I don't need all that. I said, trust me, just take it all. I want you to double zip tie my 2 mics up there. And because you never know, you might get a strong wind, blow it apart. So I love the watercraft. And but one of the hardest, yeah, it's definitely motorcycles. Things are just so small but capable of such high speed, and it's a fine line of do I do more wind baffling or do I do less? Do I do it more like that where it sounds like this? So it's a fine line of let's use less because I'm not hearing the engine very well. It's too muffled. So it's a fine line of I can record it this way and do better editing to bring out the muffled sound. So it's a fine line of yes or no, of more or less wind baffling.
So Watson, you talked about motorcycles and boats.
Mhm.
I'm gonna play an audio demo of you recording a helicopter, a Bell 407. Let's listen
Okay,
to that, and can you talk a little bit after that about the challenges of doing that? So let me just play that.
sure. So I got the opportunity to record a really cool modern helicopter hearing. So in the beginning, you're hearing the flybys, and what I learned from recording aircraft is that don't use headphones. Doesn't matter how tight they are, they're gonna come off because the pilot flew by me on purpose to blow more rotor wash at me. So my headphones, my remote audios came right off. Thanks. The guy had a sense of humor. So I always use like the Shure SC 804 846 earphones. They stay on very well, or the Mackie MP 460 earphones. So you're better off. And don't wear a hat. Do not wear a hat. Wear protective glasses. So right away, yeah, external sounds of helicopters, aircraft. Yeah, don't wear headphones and hats. It's because they're gonna come off. Um, and with those sounds, compare microphones to our ears. Microphones could reach a lot further, and you guys can confirm that. Sometimes when you do a recording, even dialogues like, "Hey, you're too close, back off." This shotgun mic can really reach far. So from for helicopters, you could be 100 feet and still capture loud sounds. All right, so that's the first thing I learned about external sounds. Yeah, don't get close. Don't even get close because a helicopter is gonna knock off the mic stand if your mic is on the stand, and onboard sounds. So with limited time, I made a judgment call of keeping my levels kind of medium low. Again, with the clean preamps we have today, I could do editing and bring out the sounds so it shines at full SPL, full volume on the sound files. So I've learned. I'm still learning. After so many years of recording different things, I'm sometimes blown away with how things react, how things can go wrong, and always bring it back up because something will go wrong.
And Watson, I read that you were involved with the movie Baby Driver, which is a very, the sound plays a huge part in that particular movie, and also it involves a lot of vehicles. What was your role in that movie, and what did you do for it?
I was called by the producer to come to Atlanta, Georgia, and record all of the stunt car sounds for that picture. So they tasked me to record 3 straight days, very long hours of all the vehicles. So I was talking to James, the boom guy for Baby Driver, and I tasked him to do the external sounds while I concentrated on the onboard sounds. And James and I both had the same recorder, and through emails, I was given the shot list of what to record. So, for example, when the Challenger is going towards the camera and he's sliding 90 degrees, well, we had to drive towards James and slide and not get closer than 7 feet. And James is a big guy, so it would not be hard to miss him. So I had to deal with dealing with really from quiet to really loud sounds of different stunts. We ran a Cadillac so hard we actually killed the Cadillac, and the mechanic had to intervene to get parts and come back and fix the Cadillac for us to continue recording until we killed it again. And those are the things we do for great sounds. We kill things, which I don't really like to do. I mean, it's a Cadillac. It's not like a Ferrari or anything, but it's still a car, and somebody could use. So, yeah, that's Baby
What's your
Driver.
favorite? What's your favorite projects that you like to work on?
I tend to like games a lot because games are non-linear. So if I'm playing a game, a PlayStation game, if I have a character walking through the forest and he sees a cave, he can make a right and go in the cave, and you have the different sound of what it sounds like in a cave versus the forest. I could keep going in forest. So I love to record and design the variety of sounds. So if I'm in a cave, I make a left, it's going to be bigger. I'm going to have a bigger sound. So I do, I worked on a lot more games than anything else. And for myself, I just love to play and take control where I'm going and be in the game world as a gamer. So it's to me it's very fun.
It's got to be kind of cool too, as you're playing a game that you did all the sound design to. That's got to be kind of cool.
That is fun, and sometimes surprising. Sometimes if there's a sound designer, sometimes what they do with it really stands out a lot. So because two different people have two different ways of thinking. If you and I both read the same email, I might get mad. You might get, hey, that I got his sarcasm. So it's cool to hear a different perspective and to hear how they brought out those sounds, more mid range, more high pitch. It's really interesting.
So speaking of games, let's play one more clip here. We've got Grid Race Game, which is the Ford GT. We'll play that, and then we'll come back and keep chatting.
Okay. So earlier we talked about different heights. I'm 6'1", and I could barely fit in that car. Now this car is worth over $1 million now, and I was like, okay, make sure I have no pocket knife, no pen sticking out to puncture the hole on the seat. And so they tailored this car to the top secret road again for me to put 12 channels on board. You're looking at a car going, it's such a little car. Where am I going to put 12 channels? Well, we did it. Of course, the in the cab mic was a ambisonic mic, so that if you're playing the game as first person, you're going to hear the shifting, rather paddle shifters or a stick. So I had two recorders in my bag, and the driver, the owner, had to help me with the seatbelt. I was like, oh, little space, and get all this in there and record what it sounds like in this super car, this Ford GT. So it was really interesting to record what this really sci-fi car sounds like. And in the game, it sounds great. I mean, it is a one of a kind car. It's amazing. I'm just pretty blessed that Codemasters hired me to do that, and to find those guys, the GT guys, to let me pay them to record this great car.
I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but how do they actually get it to work in a racing car game like that? Because obviously, you've got all the shifts and the different engine sounds that have to happen, in sort of real time, depending on who's actually playing that game. They're driving the car obviously differently.
Yep.
How do they actually make that all work and come together so it sounds realistic?
Right. So in a game, you have different programs. You have a program that move the animation. You have a program that could let you play with sounds, for example. So one of the most important sounds we capture for games are they're called ramps. So a ramp is when you put the car in first gear and you keep it there and you drive smoothly up to the red line. So crazy high RPM. And that ramping up could take 12 to 15 seconds. So, and then at the end of the ramp, for Codemasters, we had to hold the red line and let it go, which would be hard for the car, and then let the car engine brake. So ramping up, ramping down. So in the game, if you're playing, let's say PlayStation, and you hold the throttle, well, the engine's going up to the red line, and then it shifts again. So the software will take those ramp sounds and shift as it's approaching the red line. So you might have set of that's why sometimes in the game it's fiction. You're shifting 20 times, and it still sounds like it's rising. So that's how you keep it exciting throughout the gameplay. I mean, how do you shift again and again, minutes after minutes in a race game? Well, it's fiction. So the tools in the game is what makes it possible for real time. So if I throttle and I let it go really quick, it's going to ramp down, and I can do it again for downshifting. It's the tools. So these guys, programmers, did a great job so that you and I can enjoy real time, this pleasure of up and down sounds.
But they can't do that unless you record all of the bits and bobs that they need in order to allow that to happen, right? Because if
Correct.
I
Correct.
decide I want to shift 12 times in 6 seconds, which is ridiculous, you still have to give them all the pieces to allow that to happen for
Right.
the player, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
Right.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of pitching involved. The old way of games was steady RPMs. So if we have a steady RPM at 1,000, 2,000, 3, and so on, we're playing that RPM and we're pitching to the second, to the third, and it sounds very artificial. So it's a rise of the RPM, the new way, the ramps that shifts again and again. It sounds just like you and I driving a race car.
How do you keep all of your files organized on a shoot? I can only imagine by the end of a shoot, you have hundreds of clips. And how do you name them? How do you organize it? Just so you can deliver these things, it makes sense.
Sure, sure. I What I usually do is when I have the memory card from the recorder, I'll quickly name a folder and I'll say on board. Let's just talk about cars. On board, and then underscore the names and the mics according to the input numbers. So I might put on board 4062 for the mic and so on. And at the very end, underscore the name of the recorder. So once I name that folder, I can then copy and paste the onboard memory card into that folder. And the same thing for the other recorder, the external recorder. I'll take the memory card and I'll make a folder, external underscore the order of the mics again. So I might say 418S for the Sennheiser mic, underscore 8040S for the XY stereo mic, and then the name of the recorder. So I'll copy and paste. I believe that's the fastest way to get something organized. So that way, later on, when I'm done, I could create a spreadsheet with the details of what channel was what at what perspective, and I do a lot of voice slate too. So I will hit record and say, okay, right at the beginning, I'll say where the mics are. I'll say input 1 is engine left, it's this mic. Input 3 is cab above driver. Input 6 is exhaust left. So with the voice slate, I always know what's going on. So my first take in any of the folders I have from the recordings, I know what they are. And I name them according to what they are, alphanumeric order. So I always know. I recall recordings from 20 years ago. I could find them in 15 seconds or less.
Hmm.
So if you do that
And
from the beginning,
you do that as well. You have a sound library, so you got to be able to find this stuff, right? When
you have to.
you're
You have to.
selling them.
You don't always want to rely on SoundMiner software. Yes, they're great. You could just search and find things, but you don't want to always do that because sometimes I take my work on the road. I'm editing, designing in hotel rooms. So I have my MacBook Pro, some external hard drives. I then, I have to find out where they are and quickly edit them and design them for the customer, at night in the hotel room. So you want to be very thorough, very organized from the beginning. Right. You don't want to have a bunch of untitled .wav files all over the place.
Are you also using this sort of material as a reference? So if a client comes to you with a new job and say, hey, we want you to come and record such and such a car, do you go back and look and see if you've done that before and then work out, okay, these are the microphones that I used and I know this worked well, and then go from there? Or do you keep all that information sort of upstairs and you're just doing it via memory?
Most of it's by memory. It's almost like us men, we always remember numbers, like that car has 800 horsepower. This car is a turbo V6. So these are a lot of things that women say it's useless information, but they are useful for what I do. So I do have a lot in my memory, but sometimes I will go back and refer and say, you know, I want this specific sound because I've done this kind of car before. So I want those mics. So I'll go back and look at my notes and listen to those recordings at certain moments and say, hey, okay, I'm going to use those. Because when you do have so many mics, wow, there's just so much, too many options. So you want to find what you can do and also bring backup.
Any new tech you're into right now? I mean, I know we all kind of are a bit of a gearheads around here. Any new microphone technology or recorders you're interested in that you think is pretty cool?
Um, I've been using it's not new, but the Electrosonics SPDR, the little, you know, small 2-input recorder. I'm blown away by how great it sounds. It's this little recorder that you hit record and you forget about it. I put that on 2 motorcycles. For a motorcycle, I usually have the rider wear a backpack, and I'll put the recorder in there and zip it up. So if I'm going 2 channels, I could just use the SPDR and have it on the rider's belt and not have to worry about a backpack and managing all the cables. So I've been really enjoying that, and still enjoying the 32-bit. I've been using 32-bit for over a year, and just enjoying that. Even when the sound's too loud, I can still bring it back and normalize it, and it still sounds great. So I'm really enjoying that. So I just can't wait for the future. We could do more stuff with smaller items and be more portable, because I oftentimes carry so much with me that I only have 2 arms. I want to be able to carry a lot more in my 2 large Pelican cases. So I just can't wait for the future, because one day this iPhone, believe it or not, it's going to do 1,000 channels one day. Okay. And then I am obsolete, right? Maybe not 1,000, maybe 900 channels. Okay. And
And
if
we're
you
all
don't believe me, we are flying. All right. We've been flying for a while. We've gone to the moon, and things could happen. So I'm excited.
Well, I'm not blowing smoke here. You're not going to become obsolete. Keep building those sound libraries. Keep taking that knowledge and building on that. I do have one question before we wrap this up, and I let Erik and Matt kind of jump in for their final things. Watson,
Okay.
you moved from 10 miles away to about, or 10 minutes away to 30 minutes away from the secret location that we will never know about, at least in terms of location. Did you do that because there's better restaurants on the way there and on
Oh,
the way back? Because you're a foodie. Those beef
I,
soups are killing me, man. So is
oh
that why
yeah.
you did that? Is that the secret in terms of why you
Um,
moved? Tell me.
it's
Yeah,
always about
I mean,
food.
you have to eat, so you want to be closer to food, So, I mean, Top Secret Road's great, but there are no restaurants there, not even a gas station. So you really need to be closer to food, And my I get, Jem knows my obsession. So I had a good friend that he said Watson always plans these recording trips around what restaurants are en route. I will go 5 miles out of the way because there's a great Japanese restaurant right there. Speaking of
It's perfect.
Japanese food, or Chinese food, or Vietnamese food, or noodles, pasta, Italian food. So yeah, I am obsessed with good food. I Yeah, exactly. See, I get hungry. That was for the TV show, um, and it was great. And what was great about that, I got to eat after that of that food, and the client paid for it. So it was a win-win situation. So when it's food, I will be there.
We are kindred spirits, for sure. Erik, Matt, let's wrap this
Yeah.
up. Any last questions? And Watson, just from my perspective, fantastic to have you on the show. We always learn things whenever we do one of these, and just in the hour that we've had, I feel like I've increased at least my viewpoint of sound recording, and it's definitely been educational. Erik, you're
Great.
first.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, no, I think that's really why I wanted to have Watson on. I think that, having a real pro, it just does something that's very different, and I think, recording voices is one thing, but when you have to deal with all of these different types of sounds that are, very extreme. You know, we go from having to get a very light touch to someone walking, or a bird fly, or a wind, compared to a gun going off and miking a motorcycle. So I think this is just really great information. So I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us, and it was fun. And also, I want to say that Matt and I we love food too. It's just ridiculous. And I think I read like 3 times a week we're sending each other messenger pictures of what I'm barbecuing and what amazing fresh food he gets in Japan. Just like it's crazy, the beautiful food that he gets. So it's the contrast between what we eat and what it's just kind of fun. So yeah, food is important. Food is life.
Exactly. Yeah, I love barbecue and I love sashimi. I love it all. It's great.
Matt?
Yeah, I just want to say, just what Erik echoed there. Thanks very much for coming on and sharing all your knowledge, because it's always great to hear how people are doing different and interesting things, because we don't normally get to hear about that, particularly with sound. It's overlooked in a lot of ways. And if anyone's out there who's like working on one of those like food shows, maybe you should hit up Watson, because it's going to be a win-win for him as well. You won't have to throw out any food. You'll get great sound and you'll get clean plates at the end. So it's a win-win for everybody.
That's good. That sounds good.
You gentlemen, yes. You gentlemen are awesome. I will say I cannot wait until the 4 of us can sit down on a foretop with beers, whiskey, and a lot of food, and just spend 2 or 3 hours just doing what we should be doing in life. So again, Watson, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody who came by, everybody who's going to watch this episode. You will learn a lot, and we'll see you next time on Newsshooter Weekly. Take care, everybody. All the best.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. That was fun.